Hey good people, welcome back to Beauty in the Frizz. My name is Cara. Whether you're new or returning, thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with me for another one today. It's Sunday, so as y'all know, it is Mimosas and Makeup. So today, I decided to opt for a light margarita. So basically, it's the Jose Cuervo margarita, and it's already prepared. So it's lower in, well, I don't think it has any calories, maybe 10. And then the carbs are low. I can't remember, but they're low. But then I had to add a little more tequila to it. Yeah. And just a little bit of pineapple rum and a little tiny bit of orange juice just to give it just that, just that taste. So this is pretty good, delicious. It's not all, over the top. The only thing about tequila is it gives me weird dreams, so I cannot have too much of it. Anyway, I'm doing another stressful video today because a few weeks ago, or it might have been a month or so ago at this point, I did a video talking about my favorite eyeshadow brands and if I had to get rid of one palette. Well, today I am going to talk about my favorite eyeshadow brands and if I can only keep one palette. So yes, this was stressful. So if you want to see the palettes that I chose, keep watching this video and let me know what you think. And if makeup is your therapy and your love, if it makes you happy and you're trying not to buy everything in Sephora, definitely consider joining the community because I would love to have you back. All right, let's get Have you all tried the same day Sephora service? Because I did. And you know what's crazy? I had two things in my loves that have been out of stock. One was that Tatcha sunscreen serum, and then another one was a Dior lipstick. It was in the shade Pink Bow. And I saw that it was out of stock online, and then I clicked it, and it was like eligible for same day rouge delivery. It was here by like 1 p.m. today. I thought that was amazing. I don't know if that was a good thing, but I just wanted to try it out, and that was a way for me to get two things that were out of stock online. So just saying. All right, so I'm not sure who originated this video idea, but I know that my friend Ash from Dr. Ash and Her Makeup did this video recently, and I was like, oh man, like it got my wheels turning, like which palettes would I keep? So I thought it would be interesting. So I'm gonna do this video in the same order that I did the previous video. And I'm gonna start with BH Cosmetics. And I'm starting with my Sweet Shops palettes. And if I could only keep one Sweet Shops palette, and if you know me, you probably already know this answer, it would have to be none other than Orange Sorbet. I really enjoy wearing orange eyeshadow, and this was such a surprise to me that this was gonna be my favorite out of all of the Sweet Shops. Honestly, I thought maybe the green one, and at the time the blue one, because those were the ones that everybody wanted to get their hands on. And I remember getting this one, I think from Ulta, and it was online and it was $9, or it might have been from BH Cosmetics, but it was $9. This was before the restock, so this was probably one of the first ones I had. Yeah, I love it so much. I love how you can go orangey orange, but then you can kind of do that neutral type look if that's something that you want to do. The quality of these palettes are, I always say it, is top notch. The shimmers are shimming, the mattes are matting, and I just have not one complaint about any of the shades in this palette. Like, I could use them all equally. And I just like the way orange looks on me. Orange is just such a happy color to me. So this is the one I would keep if I had to get rid of all the rest of them. Cherry on top would be tough to get rid of too. I think that's my number 2 favorite, but I definitely have to say Orange Sorbet has definitely stolen my heart out of all of the Sweet Shops. So that's number 1, or the first brand. So my second brand is going to be none other than Pat McGrath. If I could only keep one of my Pat McGrath palettes, this honestly, it wasn't hard for me. It was kind of hard, but no, not that hard. I would keep Subversive. This is the Mothership 3. Hands down, I would have to go with this palette. Midnight Sun is another one that I have grown to really love. But initially, like, Subversive was my favorite Mothership, and it might be back in first place. We'll give it some more time because I'm going to be doing some more looks, but This is one of the most unique color stories that I've ever seen. And one of the reasons why I fell in love with Pat McGrath in the first place, hence the disappointment with all of the pink releases, because this is just such a unique color story. I know there are these two browns here, two completely different finishes, but yeah, this is just amazing. And it's crazy because this shade here, Gigabyte, this shade a lot of people are comparing to that gold in the new Bridgerton palette. Gigabyte is just a really unique shade. Oh, it's just, this palette is just so deep and vampy, but it's really inspiring to me and really sparks that creative juice that I really love to have. I love this special shade. Let me tell you what it's called. It's called VR Pink. Yes. And this is that pink to gold flip duochrome. I am not sure, and you can correct me just because, you know, I'm newer to this game, but I'm certain that when this palette came out, people weren't including a whole bunch of duochrome shades in palettes. I want to say that that's the case, but I don't know. So I just feel like maybe looking at this now, you may not feel anything for it, but I still do. It's so grungy. It's just, it's everything. This is one palette where I love the special shades in here. Blitz Amethyst, that's this purple one here. Look at that. Look how beautiful that is. And I don't even think I gave Gigabyte like a really good swatch. So let me go back because we're gonna do it some justice. Look at that. Look how beautiful that is. This is just an awesome palette. For some reason, it makes me think of like Thriller. I don't know. I think it's just because of that Night Creature shade. But yeah, that's another one. This kind of, it's not even like a bright fuchsia. I don't even know what you call it, but it is just, this palette is just something else. It is just something else. If I could only keep one palette, I think this would be it. I do. I also really like Celestial Divinity a lot as well. I wasn't thinking of that one, but Subversive for sure, yeah. So brand number 3 is Anastasia Beverly Hills. And up until recently, I only had 3 palettes, but I do have Primrose, the Primrose palette. But if I could only keep one palette, I think you guys know, it would be the Jackie Aina palette. I feel bad because I love the Sultry palette. Like I really, really love it. But fortunately, I think that that palette is more dupable than the Jackie Aina palette. And this palette, another palette that we have that is just, or was geniusly put together by Jackie Aina. I feel like every shade is wearable, don't have a bunch of blend out shades. There are no glitter shades like the Amorisi palette had like 2 like glittery type shades. None of those in here. And I just love all of the different ways that you can go with this palette. You can go pink, you can go purple, you can go neutral. You know, there's something for everybody in this palette. And I really appreciate how this palette can work with all skin tones, every skin tone. I don't think I've heard one person say anything negative about the Jackie Aina palette, and I just think because there is something for everyone here. Yeah, no matter what color story you like, you can find it here. You can find grunge, you can find like Barbie doll, you can find it all here. You can find basic work looks, you can find date looks, vacation looks. This is just an all-purpose palette. And I am so proud to have this one and own this one. So that's the one I keep. I don't feel too bad letting the others go either. I do love Sultry, but we can find something equivalent, I think, maybe. So next up is Odins Eye. And this is tough for me because I really like all of my Odins Eye palettes and I really wouldn't want to give any of them away. But if I could only keep one, it would have to be the Giant Wolves palette, which was from the legendary Diversa collection. And this was Annette from Annette's Makeup Corners palette. And I would just have to keep this just off the uniqueness alone. I would feel really bad giving up my Judy palette because I would. But this one, I have created some of my favorite looks with this palette. And I just love the story of it. I love the mattes that are included. You've got this bright blue that kind of stands out, but then you've got like a fuchsia here, you've got some grungy shades here, you have a black, you have a multi-chrome, you have a couple shimmer formulas, and I just think Odins Eye really puts together some awesome palettes. This is the multi-chrome from this palette. It's the shade Eternal. So look at that beautiful shimmer. I mean, it looks wet, you know? And we have the shade, what is this one? Some of the shades are like more toppery, and then some of the shades are just so deep. And that's what I really like about Odins Eye and their shimmers. There's a variety of formulas that they use, and you can do the toppers, you can do the deep ones, they have the multi-chromes. The mattes blend out so easily. I am just a fan. I have been a fan since I tried the Norns palette. So there are those shades there. And you can see that beautiful multi-chrome shade. Yeah, this is just really unique. I don't know. I tend to like palettes where they're cohesive, but you can still do a variety. And I know that's really hard to find, but that's how I feel about this palette. So I would definitely keep this, but it would hurt my soul to give away any of my other Odins Eye palettes. Like, it would really hurt my soul. So glad this is pretend, because I would really hate to give away any of my Odins Eye palettes. They are like one of my favorite brands. All right, so next we have Sydney Grace. This one was really tough, especially because I just brought Tiny Marvels back out. It was just restocked, and coincidentally I had just done 3 looks with it. I wanted to see, did I feel the same about it? Did I love it the same? And of course I really do. But am I sure? I'm trying to think if I'm sure. I'm sure. If I could only keep one Sydney Grace palette, and this also hurts my soul because that means my beloved Tiny Marvels and my Quintessence would be going, I would have to keep Enduring Love. This palette is like, and I know, like from right here, I know it may not look like much, and I get it, but I didn't understand like just how good this palette was. And I remember Dr. Ash saying, Enduring Love is so good, it's so good. And this is before I knew like the Sydney Grace made the light palettes and the deep palettes. So I had already had Tiny Marvels. And then of course I watched Mel Thompson. She did some looks with this palette, and I was like, oh, I did not know. I did not know. So all of the shimmers in this palette are great. There are 1, 2, 3, there's 6 shimmers, and the rest are mattes. All of these mattes are so good. And this is more of a cool toned, you know, type of situation here. But these shimmers, the shimmers that I love, this shade right here, this might be my favorite one in the whole palette, Deanna. It is just like, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of an oil spill. I don't know how to describe it. But look at that. I know that was not in focus, but there it is. Look at that beautiful, beautiful shimmer. Like, Sydney Grace does some great shimmers. Like, I don't need y'all to do a dual chrome. I don't need all of that. I know they can do everything, but these metallic shimmers are what I love most about the brand. This is the shade Devotion. Look, it's foiled. It is gorgeous. The shade Albert. I love this one too. It's like a, I don't know, it's like a silver. It almost reminds me of a little bit of lilac in it. I don't know if lilac is the right color, but look how beautiful that is.
Mom, are you done?
I'm not. Remember I told you, hey, I have been hanging out.
Videos are always on.
Okay, but it's 10 o'clock at night. You were supposed to be asleep. I'll be up in a little bit. Don't do that to me. When do I get time? When do I get time? No time. Like, I have cooked out. We have been outside doing yard work. We've been having a good time. This is Elizabeth. When am I gonna film? Look at this. I can't. And it's no point of really swatching these mattes, but they are all gorgeous. All gorgeous. I would definitely, yeah, I'd have to keep Enduring Love. This is like another all-purpose palette. Like how I feel about Jackie Aina. I love you. I mean, I have an enduring love for enduring love. Yes, that's corny, but it's true. So this is interesting. Next we have Adept. And at the time, I had 3 Adept palettes. I had Plain Jane, Ninhydrin, and Kodan. But if I could only keep one Adept palette, it would be this Heather Austin palette. I am so sorry. And that might be presumptuous, but I have worn this palette 3 times already, and this palette is perfect. Like, there is a good ratio of mattes to shimmers. There's 4 mattes here, and the mattes that are included in this palette can completely change the look. That's not a matte, it's these 2. These 2 here and these 2 here. It can completely change the look. I mean, we can go neutral, we can go pinky purpley, we can go green and grungy. There are great duochromes in here, and the performance of the palette is awesome. Or you can mix everything up. And with the looks that I created, I think this is going to be a lot of people's, or on a lot of people's top palettes for 2022. I can already see that happening just because the design, the layout, and the thought behind the colors that were chosen. I just think a lot was put into it. And if I had to give up Plain Jane or Ninhydrin or a Kodan, I would definitely be okay with that. Ninhydrin I love because it does have 2 mattes, but with the 2 mattes that are in there, you can kind of only go one kind of way. Whereas this palette, the mattes totally transform where the look is going. And for me, I always start with the mattes, so they drive the look for me. So this is the palette from Adept that I would definitely keep. This one is just such a gem. So next we have Unearthly Cosmetics. You'll probably know the answer to this because it's all we ever wanted. That's everything. All we needed. It's all we wanted. I kind of was thinking about the Bunnies palette, but I'm gonna go with All I Ever Wanted. The reason why I'm gonna go with All I Ever Wanted is because ever since I got this palette, when it comes to all these other brands that have these all shimmer palettes, I don't go for those palettes anymore because I have found that a lot of those shades are in here and I feel like the formula, I can't tell the difference. So I've learned my lesson. It's 20 shades. It's so easy to just take this and take just whatever mattes you want, like get your Blends Bunnies palette or a bronzer. You don't even have to have a whole bunch of colors, and slap one of these babies on here and you have got a look. I love the wet shimmers that are in this palette. I want to say, yeah, Alien Princess right here. Passion is one of those wet shimmers. Look at that. And then it's just so beautiful. Look at those. And then there's some different formulas in here too. Basilisk, which is in the Lure palette, is another beautiful green. Like, come. It's just so pretty. There's so many unique shades in here. Just Landed is a nice one. Nice little like sea green, blue green, I don't know. And I could go on and on and on and on. Pink Moon. This almost reminds me of Red Giant by Terra Moons in a way. It's like that pink with the red kind of undertone in it. This is Sphinx. Sphinx is another one. Sphinx is this one here, like that orangey pink shift. Look at this. It looks wet. Like I just can't. And honestly, this is the first time where I saw shimmers like that. Not in this palette by Unearthly Cosmetics, but in their holiday palette from 2020. That was the first palette that I purchased from them. And man, you know what? I have it sitting out. Let me grab it really fast. And I'm sorry y'all can't get your hands on it, but let me grab it. When I bought this palette, I knew I was in love with the brand. This was the first one I got from them, and I was like, I've never seen anything like this. Never. And it was this wet shimmer right here, where I was like, oh, what is this? I've never seen anything like this. I mean, look at that. Look at that. I was just so amazed, and that's kind of what did it for me with Unearthly Cosmetics. So All I Ever Wanted would be the palette that I'd keep. I mean, I would hate to get rid of some of the other ones, especially like the Bunnies palette. I love the Bunnies palette. It took me so long to use it. When I finally did, I was like, wow. But yeah, all I ever wanted is a keeper. You're not gonna get that one from me. So next we have Kaleidos. I was sad about that last release. I didn't get anything from their last release, but they needed some neutral palettes in their arsenal, and I get it. They just weren't for me. But one palette that was for me that I would keep over all of the others, I would have to say is the Club Nebula palette, which was the collab with Angelica Nyquist. And I really love this palette because it's just a very unique color story. I love the unique mattes that she chose, and I love all the shimmers. All of the shades I feel like I can wear. The shimmers are, a lot of them are more like toppery, and I can't say that these are my favorite like shimmers as far as the formula is concerned, but they're nice shimmers, you know what I mean? And I think the looks that I made from this palette are really nice, but I think the mattes are what stand out in this palette. There's just some different mattes that I don't have in single shadow formula, and I think that the colors that you can put together and the, you know, the looks that you can create can be really unique. I've seen so many different looks with this palette and so many different takes on it. It's just a palette that I don't think you could get bored with. And I think it's a palette that really sums up what Kaleidos is as a brand. Like, it's creative, it's inspiring, positive. They always talk about makeup on the bright side, and it's like futuristic, and that's what this palette reminds me of. I definitely think this palette really encompasses Kaleidos as a brand, so this is the one I keep. So the next brand is Huda Beauty, and I just used rose quartz, so I've officially used all my Huda Beauty palettes and couldn't make the decision. But if I had to keep one palette, or could only keep one palette, it would actually be the Naughty Nudes. And this was the holiday collection palette from 2020. I feel like the rose quartz palette is almost like maybe a lighter and cooler version of this. But this palette to me is just like sexy, and it's warm. And you see I did take out that slippery shade and I put in a brown shimmer. I just thought it would go really nicely with the colors that were already here. Some of these shimmers are just really, really, really good. And I know that the rose quartz palette has some duochrome shades, and this one does too. So the shade Passion, this is kind of a blue purple duochrome shade, and let's see, this one might be a duochrome too. Oh yeah, I think this one might be. That one looks like it is too. That is Shameless. Please Me isn't, but yeah, these shimmers are really, really nice. The mattes are great. I don't have any issues with this palette at all, and I really think I need to pull this out really soon. The problem with that, you probably can't even see it. Look how wet that looks. I'm sorry, back to this. The problem with those Petri dish shades, they crease on my eyes. I don't know what you use them for. I did try to use it in the rose quartz as a highlighter, but it just was sticky. It did not dry down. But all in all, I would get rid of all of my Huda Beauty palettes for this one. And I just like the formula. So over time, you know, she has changed. And in some of my older palettes, like the New Nudes palette, there were like there was a concealer shade or a base shade, and then there was like a couple pressed glitters. So, you know, this palette doesn't have that. So I can really use all of the shades, and I think it was a really great release, and I think it looked good on a lot of people. And next we have good old Melt Cosmetics. This one was tough, but yeah, I'm gonna stick with it. If I could only keep one Melt palette, I think it would have to be Gemini. And you know, this is very timely. I'm not saying it because it's releasing again, but I was lucky to find this in stock at Sephora last year, and it took me many a month to use it. I don't think I used it until this year, but this palette to me really encompasses everything that Melt represents. It's just the grungy vibe. Now, my favorite palette by Melt is probably the Rust palette. This might be my favorite, my new favorite, but I'm just not ready to give Rust up yet. And Rust was my very first palette by Melt, and I will always recommend that one. I did have to change the shade out in Rust. This palette is perfect as is. And these grungy greens and like mustard colors are the colors that Melt does best. The other thing is that this palette is comprised mostly of mattes, and I think Melt does their mattes better than their shimmers. But the two shimmers that are here are pretty good. We have the shade Goals, which is a green shimmer, and I think it's one of their better shimmers. And again, their shimmers aren't going to be like, ooh, like over the top. We have the shade Gemini. Like this one's just okay, but it's not a crumbly shimmer. Like it's going to do what you need it to do on the lid and no more than that. I love how you have your neutral side, you've got a black here, you've got your grungy green side, and you can combine the two. I love when Melt sets their palettes up like this. That's kind of what I was used to with certain palettes, like She's in Parties and Blueprint is like that. The Rust palette, not so much, but I love Rust. I love 27. Those are two of my favorites. But I think this one overall represents the brand. And I don't, even though I would not want to get rid of Rust, I would need to keep a palette, a Melt palette that had those greens in it. Mary Jane is another one that is creeping its way up. But again, Mary Jane and Rust, I've changed shades in. This one, I would not alter any shades in this palette. And that's why this would be the one that I keep. I am going to get the new one. And I really like that color story a lot. So I cannot wait to try that one out. But this is the Melt palette that would stay. So next we have Norvina. And if I could only keep one of my Norvina palettes, it's gonna be the Norvina number 5. This palette is bomb. If you like purple shadows, this is, that was the number 5. Hold on. That's the one I said I was gonna get rid of. This is Norvina number 5. And if you like purples, this is gonna be your jam. Like, this palette is so good. But even though it's purple, you don't have to stay purple. Like, there are some really nice colors in here. There is one pressed glitter, but you know, we can work around that. Now, I do understand, like, some of these purples are super, super close, very slight differences in the tones, but I just like how you've got some variety here. Like, you can go kind of mauvey here, you can go bright purple, you can mix it up, you got like a neutral brown here, and I think that some of the shimmers are really, really good. Like, this is E3 right here, E3. Look at that, that is gorgeous. Look at, come on, look at that. Why? That is just ridiculous. D1 is another one that's a really, really good. I think this is the one. Yes. Look how smooth that is. D1 is gorgeous. And I love like these copper tones. So there's just a lot you can do with this. Oh, there's a silver in here. C2. C2 is silver. Yeah, that's like a really nice silver. So all in all, I think the Norvina 5 palette is one of their best ones. You know, some of them kind of run together, like the new one that's coming out. I'm like, those like bright mattes I've seen in like 1, 2, and 3. You know what I mean? So the other ones can go. Leave me with this and I'll be straight. So next we have Colourpop. I'm already sure you know which palette I'm not getting rid of, but I have to do an honorable mention and I'll explain it. For child. Who's getting rid of the child? Not me. I'm not. Absolutely not. Honestly, I don't even care if there are other Colourpop palettes that I like better. I don't think there is. But even if there was, I'm still not getting rid of the child. It is so cute. Like, who's getting rid of the child? Why would somebody get rid of the child? This is such, I love this. It's like earth. It's earth in a palette to me. And no, it's there. I mean, here's the thing. Even though Colourpop consistently comes out with collections.
Mama,
Yes.
are you done?
I have 2 palettes left. And then I'll be right on up. 2 palettes, 2.
Wait here.
No, you can't wait here. Privacy. Please respect my privacy at this time. Do I do that to you when you're... We're running out of time.
Staying out.
No, you're not. Then I'm taking 5 minutes. He's gonna make me rush. This is... I will not leave you. I will not leave you, okay? I love this palette. It's earth in a palette. And I was gonna say, even though Colourpop consistently comes out with releases, I feel like the performance of the palettes are consistent, but I just love this color story. I just feel like it is such a great everyday palette, and if you want to have a little bit of color, you can do that. But can I do an honorable mention for Colourpop? I have to, because it's a palette I haven't used. But every time I look at this palette, I'm like, I need to use this. I just want to showcase it because I don't even think you can get it anymore. I feel like I'm gonna love this. Tinkerbell, I feel like I could possibly like it more than the Child, but I don't know. I haven't even swatched this palette. Like, look at it. It is beautiful, beautiful. Might have to have a battle. The Child versus Tinkerbell. All right, I got 2 palettes left and then I gotta go. So let's talk about Nomad Cosmetics. If I could only keep one Nomad palette, it would be Haunted Europe. You guys, come on, come on. Look at the variety. Look at the grunginess. Look at the brights. Look at all the looks you can make. There's so many options here. So many. There are so many options in this palette for looks that you can do. You can go monochromatic. You can just divide these into 3/6 pans and kind of work with them like that. I just love this one. I love the history behind the palette. I loved everything about it and the grunginess in it the most. So I think I could forgo the rest of my Nomad palettes. I would be sad about America's Parks, but this one has stood out to me as a favorite. I really like this one the most. So this one's staying. And last but not least, we got Tatcha. Now, this one wasn't hard. Well, it was between this palette and Retro, but the palette that I would keep is the bronze palette. And this was my very first Natasha Denona palette, and this is where the love began for most of it. Now, I did reorganize this, but these are my tones. These are my shades. This is me. This is why I like the Melt Rust palette. It's the same type of vibe. And you've got these creamy, buttery mattes. And I remember when I tried this palette out, I'd never used anything like it before. But these kind of like clay colors are gorgeous. And then we have this one right here. I think this was Rhodium. I mean, look at that. This is one of those creamy mattes. It is so gorgeous, so deep and gorgeous. All of the shades in here are just beautiful. I'm gonna put this back into its original position, like the pans, but I love this palette. I would give away all my Natasha Denona palettes. Hey, what's up?
I just got upset.
I'm coming up right now. I'm gonna wrap up the video. I'm wrapping it up right now. This is the one, y'all. All right, this is the one. You know, it is 10 o'clock. This is my time. I'm sorry I couldn't do a lot of antics in this one because I guess I'm supposed to be watching a movie. So even though they're supposed to be asleep. So anyway, those are the palettes I would keep, you guys. I think I could be content, maybe. I don't know. Let me know, what are your favorites out of these brands? I did 14.
Uh-oh.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that video. That one wasn't really as stressful as I thought because I'm just like, what represents the brand to me? And that's how I chose my palette. Like, what encompasses everything about the brand when I think of them. So yeah, this was really fun to do. So thank you so much for taking out some of your time and hanging out with me for another Mimosas and Makeup. I hope you enjoyed watching this as much as I enjoyed filming it. And I also hope this was therapy for you because it always is for me. And until I see you again, make sure you are being gentle with yourself. Talk to yourself nice, stay safe, and I will see y'all really soon. Bye. I'm coming.
Block your ear.